Al Jazeera Podcasts.
Today, a crucial vote in Argentina.
Many people refer to this omnibus bill as trying to pass an elephant through a door.
With more radical economic reforms on the way, how ordinary people have experienced 6 months of President Javier Milei. I'm Malika Bilal, and this is The Take. For months now, Argentinians have been taking to the streets to protest.
I am a retired teacher, and I do not want to be the last generation of retirees in my family. I want my sister, who is a doctor, to be able to retire, my niece, who is a student, and my daughters, who are professionals. They will not be able to retire if the pension package passes today.
The protests have all been leading up to a vote happening in their parliament on a huge package of economic reforms. It's part of President Javier Milei's grand plan to transform Argentina.
He's a libertarian and anarcho-capitalist who has literally said in many interviews that he is a mole.
I love it. I love being the mole in the state. I'm the one who destroys the state from within. It's like having infiltrated enemy lines.
That is going to destroy the Argentine state from within.
Teresa Bo is a senior Al Jazeera correspondent based in Buenos Aires. She's been following Milei, the far-right politician who rose to the top through a disruptive and unconventional campaign.
He became known for his unorthodox showmanship during the campaign, wielding a chainsaw to symbolize his war on government spending, threatening vital public services, and printing a picture of a U.S. dollar bill with his face on it. Part of a widely criticized...
Milei has spent more time traveling to other countries than getting to meet governors across Argentina. And, we've been seeing him traveling to the United States to meet Trump.
President! Hope to meet you.
Then we've seen him now going to Spain, saying that socialism needs to be destroyed and that, it destroys people's lives.
Argentinian President Javier Milei continues his visit to Spain. But rather than meeting with the Prime Minister or the King, as would be expected of a visiting leader, Milei is instead attending a far-right Vox Party summit.
Then he's receiving awards from some far-right NGOs or institutes in Europe. And then we heard him say that he is proving that his plan is going to work and that him and an advisor should be nominated for the Nobel Prize.
That is to say, if we end up doing well, they will probably give me the Nobel Prize in economics.
So, many in Argentina are just looking at him and saying, hopefully your plan will work because the economic situation is extremely dire for large sectors of the population.
Wow. So, Teresa, you've spent a lot of time at these protests and talked to these protesters. How has life changed for them since Milei was elected?
Well, Milei came to power initially and campaigned with a promise to dollarize Argentina's economy. He also said he was going to shut down the central bank and many radical reforms for a country like Argentina. He has not done that, but what he has done since he took office is, first thing, he's devaluated the currency, the peso currency, by at least 50%. And this has, in a way, increased prices of everything in Argentina. Argentina was already struggling with very high inflation, but prices went even further. So he's also implementing a very harsh austerity plan in the country. We've seen, for example, around 50,000 state employees have been laid off. He's saying that 50,000 more are going to be fired. He lifted subsidies on energy, on fuel, on electricity, among other things. This is having a huge impact on the population. We're seeing that the prices in the past months have gone up around 200%.
Wow.
And people's purchasing power hasn't gone up.
There's inflation. Before, I paid in electricity bills $55. Now I pay $277.
So certainly for the people on the streets, especially, for the working class and those who are struggling to make ends meet, the economic situation has become extremely dire.
So walk me through a trip to the grocery store. What does that actually look like for you and your friends and family?
Well, basically, whatever you used to be able to buy with $200, now you have to buy with $400. The prices have been soaring. We're seeing that the price of beef, for example, has been going up constantly. In fact, the consumption of beef, which is a staple food in Argentina, people eat beef if not every weekend or 3-4 times a week, which is not very healthy, let's say, but at the same time, it's something that people have gotten used to. And this is something that, has started to go down. And it shows a little bit about, how families are struggling, how difficult it's become for many to go to the grocery shop. People have stopped, going to the theaters, going to the movies. And especially this is about the middle class. And it's interesting that those who are being hit the hardest are the lower middle class.
The situation is very difficult right now, and we are surviving with what I get here. I have 3 children, one of them with Down syndrome. I can make around $10 with a full day of work.
It's people that used to be able to go and get some extra money in construction work, and now construction is halted, so they're not being able to bring that extra money home, or that were forced to stop paying for health insurance, or who had to take their children out of private school, which in Argentina is not a luxury. Many people from the middle class send their children to school because public schools, there's lots of strikes, etc. So the poorest sectors, the most vulnerable sectors in Argentina are also struggling. They're still receiving some government assistance. This has not been halted by the current administration. But because of the rise in prices of everything else, they are also being affected because they have lost purchasing power. So, we're going to have to see what impact does all of this has in Javier Milei's support base.
Well, let's talk about the impact it's had on economic indicators, because it sounds like these changes he's brought in have already been making a splash there. He's getting a lot of attention for this internationally.
It's one of the most extraordinary economic experiments I think anyone has seen.
Argentina, the new government has just made some incredible ground. He's called the Argentinian Trump, and he's managed to slow the world's highest inflation rate.
So what kind of improvements has the economy seen under Milei?
What the government is saying is that this austerity plan has given Argentina, at least for the 5+ months, for the first time in years, a fiscal surplus, that Argentina is being able to save some money. Inflation has started to go down. We're seeing an inflation rate, a monthly inflation rate, which for any regular country would be extremely high, but for Argentina is a positive thing of around 4%. So inflation has gone down. And this is what the government is aiming for. The question is, what impact this is going to have really on the economy, because the International Monetary Fund, Argentina, owes the IMF over $40 billion in debt.
Wow.
Even they are warning that Argentina is getting ready for a hyper-recession.
After the break, if Argentina's economy is improving, why have so many people been taking to the streets to protest? So, Teresa, so far, many of these changes have been brought by these austerity measures, but that's only part of his plan. And last week, Argentina's Senate approved a huge package of reforms that he's been trying to push through for months to cut government spending even more. So we're speaking on Wednesday, June 26th, and it's expected that this week that will be approved by the lower house. What are some of the changes that he's trying to bring through in this package?
Well, he tried to pass this law earlier this year, this bill, which had over 600 laws. Well, that initial omnibus bill was reduced, or has been reduced, to over 200. And in it, you have, for example, plans to privatize some state companies. There's also something that's known, which is a massive benefit for foreign companies who want to invest in Argentina. There's also some labor reforms, for example. The government wants to increase taxes, again, on some sectors of the population that were removed by the previous administration. So for many, this omnibus bill, as we know it here in Argentina, is what would allow the government to show not only the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, foreign investors, local investors, is that the government has a plan, that his plan is sustainable. And that's one of the reasons why it's been extremely difficult for him to pass. Many people refer to this omnibus bill as trying to pass an elephant through a door because it was massive. Let's not forget that Milei has only a small presence in Congress, a very small presence in the Senate. And that's why it's taken him such a long time. This will be the first time that he'll be able to pass his legislative agenda, if he manages to pass this. It's very likely he will. He has made lots of concessions. But still, we've been seeing lots of protests on the streets. We've been seeing labor unions extremely concerned. We've been seeing social movement, left-wing parties, protesting on the street because many people believe that they will lose many of the rights they have.
Okay, I want to talk about those protests because we know that these reforms, despite the positive impact that economists point to that they've had on inflation and the budget deficit, they have faced a lot of backlash from the public. You mentioned that people have been taking to the streets. It's been happening for months and often facing violent responses from police.
There have been running battles with protesters setting cars alight and hurling stones and petrol bombs at police who responded with water cannon and rubber bullets.
What have those protests been like from your vantage point? What have you seen and heard?
What I've been seeing is left-wing groups, labor unions, left-wing political parties taking to the streets, demonstrating, and as soon as they touch a road or try to block it, the police act on it. In fact, about 2 weeks ago, when the Senate debated this law, it was extremely violent.
During the debate, there were violent protests outside by those who say the measures will expose people to poverty and unemployment. Riot police used shields and motorcycles to force crowds away from the Congress building.
We were there, water cannon, pepper spray. The protesters were launching rocks. They set 2 cars on fire on the street, so it became extremely violent. I was able to follow some of the people that were detained. Around 35 people were detained, but among them, there were at least 3 that I know of that were selling food on the streets, trying to make a living. So, many perceive it as a very harsh policy by the government, just detaining anyone who's daring or roaming around Congress.
And what exactly are people calling for?
Well, they're concerned about what these laws that Milei wants to pass. For Milei, these are fundamental for him to transform Argentina. He wants to modernize Argentina's economy. And many labor unions agree with him, too, that many laws need to be reformed to modernize the state and to try to help Argentina out of an endemic economic crisis that's been, we've been seeing for many, many years now. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, the people we're seeing on the streets are labor unions, are left-wing political parties, are many who are very close to, for example, the Peronist party in Argentina that's been, in power for many, many years and in a way represents social rights and labor rights. They are concerned about Milei's attempts to change the law. They say that labor rights are at risk. They say that Argentina is for sale for foreign companies. Mm-hmm. The government is promoting that many mining companies, oil companies, lithium company will start operating in Argentina. One of the things they're singing on the streets is Argentina is not for sale.
Well, despite those stories and despite the protests, interestingly, Milei's approval ratings have been pretty resilient. He still has around 50% support. How do you make sense of that?
Well, it is quite extraordinary. And most of the analysts I've spoken to are saying that this has to do with the discredit of Argentina's political class. People are disenchanted with politicians in Argentina. I think that the austerity measures, are having an impact on everyone in Argentina, but many are choosing to continue to believe. They continue to have hope. They're saying this is going to just be a few months, and at some point, the economy is going to start picking up. Then they just want to live in a normal country. The question is, how long or what it is going to take, and how much they're willing to resist for them to be able to get that, And that's a big question, is how long people are going to tolerate what is currently happening in Argentina, and how long is it going to take for the government to be able to start seeing a recovery in the economy. And many believe that it may take longer than initially expected.
And that's The Take. This episode was produced by Tamara Khandaker, Chloe K. Lee, and Sonia Bhagat, with Manahil Naveed, Duha Mosaad, Veronique Eshaya, and me, Malika Bilal. It was edited by Noor Wazwaz. Our sound designer is Alex Roldan. Alexandra Locke is The Take's executive producer, and Ney Alvarez is Al Jazeera's head of audio. We'll be back tomorrow.